Friends, in this episode, let me talk about some practical issues connected with diplomacy, just to change the pace and make it a little more interesting. First, a few points about the Vienna Convention. Remember, we talked about it in the second episode. One of the central pillars of the Vienna Convention is the notion of immunity. Now, newspapers, general publics sometimes wonder, why should diplomats have immunity? It has a reason. The reason is that there have been situations where diplomats are treated badly, diplomats are put under pressure, and diplomats suffer at the hands of agencies of the receiving country. Sometimes immunity also means that diplomats or members of their families get away with accidents, with incidents which are of an unsavory nature. There was an accident that took place in New Delhi some 10-15 years ago involving a country of the global south. The son of the ambassador completely innocently ran over a security guard. His family, his country invoked immunity and he left the country. But thereafter, the government of that country imposed sanctions on that young man when he returned to his home country. There was a case recently in the UK involving the wife of an American diplomat who again, in an accident, killed a UK citizen. And the United States also invoked immunity, and that lady left the country, and she has not been made available to the British police even to conduct an inquiry. Anyway, these are unfortunate events, but the principle of immunity depends on the fact that diplomats should not be put under pressure in the country of their assignment. Let me talk now about first how the diplomacy dialogue works. When two officials representing two countries, one may be a diplomat, one may be a foreign ministry official, or both may be officials, when they hold a diplomatic conversation, they are searching for common ground. They are trying to see if their viewpoints converge on some issue, or if they can find some new way of working together. And these are all essentially explorations. That means that such conversations are treated as not usable in official documents. For example, an ambassador visits a foreign ministry and he says, I think my country would like to do this, but I don't know if that idea will work. I have listened to what you have told me. Let me see if I can persuade my authorities at home to work on that basis. Now that is a confidential discussion. Not in the sense that it can't be recorded. Well, these days everybody and his uncle can make a recording of anything. But that cannot be cited in official communication. Say there are two countries that have a territorial dispute or some other kind of dispute, and the diplomat comes and talks about something. The other side cannot say a day later or 2 weeks later that your ambassador visited us on so-and-so day and said these things, because those discussions are not to be cited. Why? Why is this? Very simple reason. When diplomats meet to explore possible solutions to a dispute, ways to work together on a third country problem, or pursue a new idea, they need freedom to float ideas. They need freedom to explore And that is a key attribute of the diplomatic dialogue. Sometimes an ambassador may say to the foreign ministry of the country that I think my country will accept this idea, but maybe they'll have some other views on it. So even if he expresses agreement, that agreement is called an ad referendum agreement. That is to say that he has not given a commitment. He has simply said, I think it's a good idea, but it is for the home agencies to confirm this. Let's then look at some terms that are used in diplomacy, some words. One of these is an aide memoire. An aide memoire is simply a non-official document. No signature, no letterhead, plain paper. It simply gives a summary of the points that one side wants to make to the other. Why is it used? It is an aid to memory. Supposing an ambassador has received instructions to go and make a demarche. I'll come back to the word demarche in a moment. To make a demarche at the foreign ministry. Now, he wants to be sure that what he says is understood and recorded accurately. So, while he speaks, he conveys his viewpoint or his country's viewpoint. But before leaving, he leaves a piece of paper. That is the aide memoire, which is then used by the other side to say, this is what this official, this ambassador wanted to talk about. Demarche. Demarche is any form of representation that one side makes to the other. A demarche is different from a protest. A demarche is simply a particular kind of action. Now, supposing two diplomats meet over lunch and they talk about events in another region, or they talk about possibilities of finding a new solution to some monetary issue or some financial issue. That's simply a conversation. There is no demarche involved. A demarche is essentially a presentation of a set of views. A protest is in a very special category. A protest is formal. And very strangely, an ambassador who finds it very difficult to meet, say, the foreign minister of another country, may be received by the foreign minister if the foreign minister wants to make, or if that country wants to make a strong protest. So that means that a protest is essentially the higher the level at which it is delivered, the more serious the issue, the more serious the position of that country. Where do you protest? That again is an interesting point. Please remember that for every foreign ministry, there are two channels of communication available. The first one is your embassy in that country. And the second one is that country's embassy in your country. Now, more or less by convention, protests are delivered by foreign ministries at their own home base. That is, the foreign ambassador is summoned to the foreign ministry. The word summon is used. It's a technical word because an ambassador is always at the disposal of the receiving country. When he is summoned, he then receives a protest. Very seldom is a protest delivered through your own envoy in the foreign country. But supposing you're making a new proposal, it may well be that you will use your own ambassador for that purpose. Okay. Third and final, let's talk of how an embassy, who does an embassy deal with? For an embassy in the political dialogue, the point of contact is always the foreign ministry. The first point of contact, not exclusive, not the only one, but the first point. In the foreign country, the embassy needs close, permanent, reliable connections with the territorial unit that deals with the area to which that embassy belongs. So, when I was ambassador in Germany, my home base at the German Foreign Office was the Asia department. Similarly, for the ambassador in his home country, his principal base is the territorial division to which he belongs. So in that German example, my home base in New Delhi was the division that dealt with Europe West. We had another division dealing with Europe East. I'm talking of the 90s, long before the EU became the EEC became the European Union and expanded, etc., etc. An ambassador also needs a permanent, reliable channel of contact at the office of the head of government. That's because, as I said once earlier, the head of every government is personally involved in foreign affairs as never before. He also needs connections with other high personalities, ministers, permanent secretaries, and others in the economic ministries and in all the ministries with whom good communication is important. Now, in every capital, there is a competition for contact. An ambassador wins that competition if the ambassador offers something attractive. And that is where social entertainment becomes very important. I'm not talking of great big receptions where 500 people are invited. Those are also essential. It's a kind of, inescapable obligation sometimes. And I'll come back to entertainment in another talk. But for our purpose here, an ambassador will call a gathering of select people, be it at lunch or at dinner, and sometimes even at breakfast, although that really is a pretty horrible custom in my view. But that's life, right? Things change. At such an event, the ambassador serves exquisite food and good wines. Why? Because the quality of entertainment partly determines the people who will come to you. But remember, an ambassador's work is not limited to the capital. Very often, the best connections are made outside the capital. People are more relaxed, people are easier to approach, etc. And finally, let me say, other than officials, you always need connections with business personalities and with many, many others in culture, in literature, artists, architects, the creme de la creme of that society. Not forgetting young people, students, your own students in that country, academia, professors, and others. I'll end with a little story. When I reached Germany in 1992, I asked our super efficient social secretary, who was a lovely Indian lady who spoke beautiful German. I said, Preeti, I've been told by my friends in Delhi that I must make sure that I go and meet the Director General of the Industry Association, which is called BDI. She said, no, sir. We normally have contacts only with the President of BDI. That's enough. So I said, Preeti, how long does the President of BDI remain in that position? She said, every year there is a new president. And I said, who is the one who does the real work in BDI? She said, it's probably the Director General. So I said, then shouldn't I also go and see the Director General? And she said, not a bad idea, but we haven't done it before. Anyway, to cut a long story short, that Director General became one of my crucial allies in that country. And for 3 years and 3 months, I enjoyed his friendship and we did lots and lots of things together. Thank you very much, friends. I hope you enjoy these little conversations of mine. Thank you.